Okay, so for this video, I'm going to explain remediation a bit just so you have a better understanding of what all of that is for the final project. Remediation is a process of taking a text, whether it is a newspaper article, a story, a film, or even something like a business proposal or a report, and translating it into a new medium. Remediation is based on the idea of the famous media theorist Marshall McLuhan, who once said that the medium is the message. McLuhan meant that how you perceive information changes based on the way in which that information is presented. For example, even though I'm following a similar format as the modules I've been posting to the Blackboard Journal, you might interpret and remember things differently about this lesson just because you're getting it from a video instead of just reading it. Though remediation is a subjective distillation and representation of a particular set of ideas expressed in the original text, in order to effectively use symbols, a knowledge of some basic symbols and what those symbols often represent may be useful. Water, the color red, and the sun all have distinct and common meanings, such as rebirth, anger, and life, respectively. You should also consider what connotations certain colors have on your audience, because colors connote different things to different cultures. You should avoid creating symbols which need extensive or excessive explanation. An excellent visual remediation should clearly and interestingly capture the essential themes or ideas of the original text. For example, if one wants to remediate Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech into a set of images, one first needs to break down that speech into a few main themes or concepts. These might include the following ideas, such as all people are equal, skin color is no way to judge a person, assessing character is the proper way to judge a person. So, how could we visually represent these themes slash concepts? What are some recognized symbols that relate to these ideas? How can we tweak slash alter these symbols in a way that speaks for themselves? So, this brings me to the topic of remediating your own writing. So, how would you visually remediate your review of literature, false dichotomies paper, and process writing, such as drafts, reader responses, reflections, notes, outlines, etc.? To begin thinking about how you would approach this project, consider the following questions. How would you visually represent the main concepts of your two papers? What recognizable symbols, images, videos, etc. would help to get your point across? For reviews of literature, one thing to consider is, reviews of literature are kind of metaphorical conversations that are happening among different scholars, experts, etc. So, try to think of ways that can be visually conveyed on like Instagram or in a video or, on a podcast or something like that. As for your false dichotomies papers, they are required to analyze and center around a particular text, like a movie or something like that. It's an obvious way to go about that is to kind of show the movie and, like, show clips, clips, images, etc. of the movie, as well as finding ways to kind of depict your dichotomies. So some of you chose dichotomies that are kind of easy to visually represent, like, for example, blonde versus brunette or something like that. Um, or yeah, it's like, or I mean, something like that. If it's a little bit more abstract, it might be a little bit more tricky. But I mean, like, if you do, faith versus knowledge, I mean, an obvious symbol of faith would be something like a cross or a crucifix or a rosary or something like that. And then something that could represent knowledge could be something like, test tubes, a pair of glasses, things of that sort, maybe an apple or something like that. So aside from showing these actual documents, suggestions for revision, etc., how would you visually represent your writing process this semester in your appendix? Would it literally just be you revising, or would it be something more abstract, like a seed being planted and then slowly growing into a mature plant? So, I mean, when you think about your appendix, there's also just kind of different ways of approaching that, of kind of showing, okay, well, I started, with these kinds of assumptions and skills, abilities, understandings, whatever. And then, throughout the semester, throughout getting feedback and reflecting and revising and doing all of these things, I have, grown to be this, this particular writer, or what have you. So I just want to reiterate that the purpose of this module was just to introduce the final project and the concept of remediation to all of you. There's no activity for this lesson, but this journal post would be a good place to direct any questions you have about remediation and the final project. I will be sure to comment on your post if you ask any questions or pose your concerns. So make sure to check your entry if you do post anything. Of course, you can always contact me directly via email. So, yeah.